Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Ways We Move, the podcast that highlights innovative mobility solutions and also the people driving those solutions into our lives. My name is Nicholas Zard, and I am happy to be here again with you today and to host this show. And this one is going to be a little different because I was supposed to have brought it out by Thursday or our regular scheduling hour day. And we just couldn't because we were in Rome and we had our first International Advanced Air Mobility Master Class, and that was held at the Rome International Airport in conjunction and hosted also with by UrbanV. So, what I'm going to do here today is I'm going to first of all give you a little glimpse of what happened at the event, and I'm going to also show you my presentation, which kind of gives a good way to start on what we talked about. So first and foremost, I want to thank all of you who made it to the event. This was our very first one, and it was a pure success, and I'm very excited about that. The feedback I heard was, wow, a lot of sober people here. Wow, a lot of going into the deep weeds here. Also heard that, my goodness, you could have put less content, we would have been okay. So definitely there was a lot of things that we try to put together. As you may or may not know, Rex Alexander was here. Unfortunately, Clint Harper and Marilyn Smith could not make it due to last minute emergencies. But we also had a good friend of ours, Curtis Grad, whom you, by the way, have seen all of them already on the podcast. We also had Adam Cohen, and who is someone I will have on the show very soon. We had Sergio Cicuta, of course, because if we're in Italy, we would have to have him, who had a terrific module that was very interactive. We had Daryl Swenson and Jarek Zik, who presented a little bit of what they're doing out there in the UK and, soon somewhere else. We'll let them break that news. We also had Federico Marini from UrbanV explain a little bit more about what they are doing over there. And am I missing anyone? I'm probably missing a person or two. I hope not. It's just been 2 days since I've been back and I'm still pretty tired trying to catch up with everything that we've been through. What was amazing is that true to, if you watched the last podcast, we talked about a little bit about how I articulated this master class to go from a theoretical point of view to the practical aspect of it. And of course, the workshops. And the workshops you will see later on, I took some pictures and some videos, which we'll have in here, were absolutely fantastic. Now, why was it fantastic? Well, that's because you had people from all over the globe. We had a very strong career contingency that mixed with a South American contingency that mixed with Americans that mixed with Europeans. We had the Emirates and Saudi Arabia well presented. And it's just something amazing to see all of these different cultures working together on a given topic, right? Most of the time, the given topic is where would you choose a vertiport or multiport? What would you use and what, where, when, and everything. So the great thing about that is that even though everybody came from different parts of the world, they understood what we were working on, but they might have had something they were better at in one part of the industry or something better that they're better at doing in another segment of the industry. And all of these minds came together to work together and to find solutions. So the collaboration was spectacular. It was pretty amazing. And like I said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch and go into the presentation that I gave, which was basically called The Evolution and Future of Advanced Air Mobility, a historical and practical perspective. And I'll try to, hopefully I can include the slides in here. But I really talked about, essentially what we're trying to do. And keep in mind, this is really 52,000 feet highlight, is how we went from walking to someone eventually got on a horse, noticed that the horse was very strong, could run very far and fast. And that basically created millennia of horses hauling chariots and carriages. And that worked really well. And then somewhere along the lines, not too far, maybe a few thousand years after, somebody realized that horses could go far. Somebody in most likely in Greece, but probably even before, realized that when you have a container of water and you put fire under it, well, the lid keeps on going up. Hence, there's power in vapor. But it took, again, another few thousand years before somebody figured out that we could put that inside of a cylinder and then put more and more pressure into it and then move a piston. Hence, the steam engine. And by the way, today, still today, 2025, the steam engine is the most energy dense motor that we have created on this planet, right? Think about it. This little thing could move thousands of tons of steel on steel. And then somewhere along the line, somebody was also working on electricity and noticed that they had magnetic fields that came out of this electricity, and some magnetic fields repulsed and others attracted each other. Now, I don't know who had the brilliance of putting this on an axle with a stator and realized that now I can make those magnetic fields work really well together and create a lot of energy and a lot of torque. And as you may or may not know, the electric motor is amazing because it has 100% torque as soon as it spins. Well, there literally almost no friction. So somewhere around that, unfortunately, we took a little bit of a detour and we started using gasoline engines. And by the way, this wasn't a very easy switch over. It's not like the ICE engine, internal combustion engine, took over the electric motor. Far from it. Electric cars were all over the place, especially in the US, until the 1930s. And it wasn't until around the early 90s that Standard Oil basically went up to Ford and said, when will you start developing gasoline engines? And Ford said, opposing pistons, gasoline engines? Why would I do that? Where do I get the gasoline? And Standard Oil said, well, we'll build you gasoline stations every 20 miles. But what you may or may not know is that Ford Sr.'s wife went to her grave never owning an internal combustion engine, so she never had a gasoline car. And the reason was why, especially in the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, women didn't really want to see those smelling, vibrating, belching, fuming cars. They were very happy unplugging and then just going on their ways. And by the way, these early electric cars had already 40 to 60 miles of range. So plenty enough even for the state of those roads at that time. Then somewhere in the 90s, after World War II, the United States has a huge network of highways that link suburban urban centers to city centers. Unfortunately, not all cities were connected or linked together. So they thought, why don't we use this new technology called helicopters to bring these cities closer together, to bring these urban centers close to downtown centers. So this new technology of the helicopter was thought as a really great idea to do that. And they called it urban air mobility, or UAM, as we all know by now. Unfortunately, what they could not predict was that helicopters became more and more expensive, more and more complicated, complex pieces of machineries. It became hard to buy, hard to operate, hard to train. And so it never really made sense, using 4 to maybe 9 people to take a helicopter and go inside of a city. So, although the idea was good, it wouldn't be until another 50 years until we come back again to the electric motor, but this time we're applying it in the air. Now, in the late 1990s, Honda, Toyota, after hours, a bunch of engineers are working on using electric motors to help ICE technology. In the US, you have GM and Ford working on purely electric cars. But what you may or may not know is, again, not too far away from Greece and Slovenia, a little company called Pipistrel, which by the way means bat, and bat, why? Because they could only fly at night. They were forbidden to fly, was creating some wonderful gliders. And so Evil Buscarell, who is an absolute delightful man to talk to, decided, why don't we put a little battery, a little electric motor with a propeller, and help these gliders take off on their own without having to use, again, a gasoline powered airplane. So that really was the beginning of the launch of what we now call advanced air mobility. Somewhere around middle of 2000, the first decade of the 2000, Airbus was working on a concept of an electric airplane. It was a testing ground. It was a two-seater with two duct fans behind, and it worked, and it was called the Cri-Cri. Then, somewhere at the end of that decade, there was a little company that you may have heard of, or a little startup you may have heard of, called Joby Aviation, who decided to reinvent the helicopter of sorts, get rid of that big rotor, replace it with tons of little propellers, and hence the term eVTOL came about. Now, a helicopter is a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, and an eVTOL, like Joby's Archer, Whisk, are electric vertical takeoff and landing, which of course we've already talked about that. So despite UAM not having been able to function with internal combustion engines or turbines later on for helicopters, the promise of battery energy density was finally making UAM a reality. And also to make sure you understand, up until the early 90s, we only had lead acid battery, heavy, not a lot of energy density. And then we had a breakthrough. We had nickel metal hydrate, but unfortunately, the IPs were bought out by, of course, a petroleum company that was very reluctant to let it go and would only sell its use at a very high price. So it never fully took off. And lithium ion was also worked on in the 90s, but by the end of the 90s, we had lithium ion giving us small phones that we could finally carry everywhere. And of course, everything that you can see around you, that happened. So all of this progression and of course, energy density, which is how much energy you can put inside of a battery for a given weight and volume, made UAM a possibility. And yes, of course, back then we sort of saw UAM as a way to go from building top to building top and to land on a parking lot. Turns out building tops are not meant for that. Even if they have a helideck, it's just a helideck. It's not a helistop, certainly not a vertistop, and it's not meant for multiple operations per hour. So as energy density got better, all of a sudden regional air mobility was becoming more of a reality, linking cities together or close cities together. So this electric mobility unleashed a plethora of creativity and engineering design. And today we have a bunch of different types of eVTOLs. We have thrust only eVTOLs, meaning think of volocopter, but think mostly of SkyDrive. It only hovers. It doesn't have wings. The propellers are in a fixed position. And then we have a sort of wing formation of eVTOLs where either the propeller tilts or the motor tilts or the wing tilts, meaning that they can take off vertically and then fly more or less using their wings. The difference between the two, more payloads for the tilt motors, tilt rotorcraft, rotors, and tilt wings, whereas the thrust only really relies on its thrust. Therefore, they can't go as far, they can't carry as much. But within that, there's now another category of aircraft that came about, and those are called the eSTOLs. Now, STOLs, for those of you who are familiar with aviation, Rashid at least likes to watch the STOL races. STOL can take off on a very short runway and land on a very short runway. And of course, eSTOL is the electric version of that. What's interesting is that after that, anything bigger than that just becomes an eCTOL, where a C is conventional, so a conventional airplane that's electric. And while all of these three different types of aircrafts have pretty specific operation, let's call them envelopes, each of them can more or less encroach on another. In other words, an eSTOL can do some of the things that eVTOLs can do at the higher end, and eCTOLs can do some of the things that eSTOLs can do within that little overlapping segment. So now what we have to do is, because this is electric, we have to think of making airports, making vertiports, making multiports, adaptable to these changes. We need charging stations. Well, charging stations are extremely heavy. They cannot be just next to where these aircraft land, the TLOF. So we have to put that far away, which introduces another problem. We need storage, and the storage needs also to be far away because you don't want to have anything near any aircraft landing, right? Makes sense. However, most of the eVTOLs that we have today have skids. Not a lot of them have wheels. And yeah, some of them says they're going to hover to recharge and hover to pick up passengers and hover to go back to the TLOF, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because that uses a lot of energy. Hovering uses a lot of energy. So we are working on different solutions, and hauling them is not a perfect solution because, when you transport aircraft, it's a 3 to 5 miles per hour deal. So not terribly efficient. So now we have electricity, we have storage, and of course, we now have hydrogen. Some of these aircraft will use hydrogen either through a fuel cell or through a turbine or even a piston engine in the case of Volta Aero that wants to burn hydrogen directly into a motorcycle engine that was tweaked for this kind of purpose, right? So we have making hydrogen, we have storing hydrogen, we have electricity, we have storage for electricity, and we have aviation fuels, including, of course, hopefully sooner than later, sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF for short. So you can see how complex things get because now we have to bring all of this together in a safe format. Obviously, electricity, hydrogen, and aviation fuel, they don't mix really well together. So it's a challenge, but it's something that we can all do. So what does this mean for airports? And what does this mean specifically for airport planners, airport builders, and airport officials, which is why we create the AAM Master Class overall is to help airport officials understand. Well, it now moves the airports to be much more than a mobility platform. There are now also energy platforms because guess what? No utilities, at least as far as I can see around the world, can give us safely 10 to 50 megawatts of electricity at 6 o'clock at night. Not only they can't make it, but they can't transport it, right? There's been a lot of focusing more on the return on profits and not enough on upgrading, maintaining, and of course, moving on with higher and higher and more demand. So now we have data centers, we have AI, we have a lot of things that are drawing a lot of energies. And of course, utilities are now trying to catch up with all of that. Needless to say, within 10 years, I don't see any of them giving us 10 to 50 megawatts of power at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Therefore, that's why we've been working on ways of creating that energy locally, which means either through turbines burning very clean, either hydrogen or something like that, or why not nuclear reactors, the small nuclear reactors, which give us 20 to 40 years of electricity with everything that we need. So no renewing it, no nothing. So we're also introducing the concept of now airports and multiports are becoming also energy hubs. At one point or another, they might even have to resell their energy to utilities to help them cope with demand, the increasing demand that we have, which also means that now inside an airport, you have a smart grid. You have a grid that's redundant, that knows where everything is, and you can sort of load balance the energy factor inside of that. This is why we launched the AAM Master Class. We know that airports are going to be the launching pad for advanced air mobility. And by the way, highlight to our European friends who do not call it advanced air mobility, but innovative air mobility. And I really like that term, and we'll explain that in another episode. So, getting ready for AAM's implication means understanding all of these different strategies. And not only that, but also as we dive later on into the course, understanding exactly what is a terminal for a vertiport, what are its functions. And we went to see UrbanV's terminal where we could get a pretty good idea of what it will look like after soon enough. And so we designed we designed vertiports so that they are highly flexible, but also we're sort of moving away from the hub and spoke model, which we all love to hate, into maybe let's think of terminals as vertiports as sort of extended terminals. They're a little bit further away, having a quick connection in between them, either an underground or a light rail system that brings people quickly from one place to the other. Those are all the things that we have considered in this class. And this class was really meant for airport officials. And it was a success. And I can't thank you enough for making it a success. We had a wonderful time in Rome. We went out, visited the city. The city is absolutely spectacular. I lived many years in Paris, and I think in many ways I understand the rivalry between both cities. They're so beautiful, both of them for different things, but we had an excellent time. So after this, I invite you to look at the classes. I'm going to have snippets and you can see what happened, who talked, and how they talked. It was absolutely fantastic. We had a great time despite three no-shows and some unfortunate having to play some videos, which wasn't the best thing. And I can now say, are you ready for it? This is the big one. Our next location, if I was excited about this location, our next location, I'm even more excited because I've been talking to a lot of our speakers who come from different cities about what are the possibilities of having it in your own city. And everybody says, yes, there's a possibility to do it. Let's think about it. Fine. And so when Curtis Grad told us about everything that is available in Vancouver, which is where we're going to have it next, we have everything out there. Of course, we've got a seaport, but we also have electric floating airplanes. We also have rail. We have the automotive world. We have an international airport. We have hovercraft, for crying out loud. We even have that. We have everything there. So see you guys next year, same place, well, same bad time, more or less, but in a different setting where we will be in beautiful Vancouver in and around the middle to the end of September, where the season is wonderful. And if you want to go skiing, you can go to Whistler, but we invite you to stay tuned and find out some more. So please stay tuned as I string along a bunch of little videos after this, and I will be very happy to explain what we've done. I'm also very happy to answer any questions you may or may not have. even the ones you may not have. I'm very happy to explain or answer them. And in the meantime, thank you for watching this. Please like, share, and subscribe, and give us your thoughts. What do you think? What do you think is needed? What is your understanding of advanced air mobility, and how do you think it will affect you? In the meantime, we'll see you a little bit later next week. Coming up this week, I have a wonderful person I'm interviewing, and you will like her a lot.
Advanced mobility kind of across these different modes to kind of support this kind of complete trip, multimodal travel chain. Now, sometimes I show this figure in kind of, a three-part piece.
But we work like and one last topic, the most important one is if you don't have any current existing buildings on which you can place a vertiport, you have to find like a wide area.
Just to get people as quick as possible to something bigger. And then I think most of the revenue will be from operating costs.
I agree because
which is important because the main part of our experience is to move from a very theoretical concept to operational field.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Federico Marini, Vertiport Operations Specialist at UrbanV. Today we had a great session trying to focus on the introduction of vertiports both inside airports and the city. We, in two different groups, tried to focus on how to realize a connection between an airport and a city, especially in the city of Rome. And we came across different like tough topics, but together we identified, we made it to realize very different, very good connections. So thank you very much, and congratulations to all the groups.
Well, thanks, Federico. How was it working with so many people from different parts of the industry, different segments of the industry, sectors? How was it seeing all of these people come together, different continents altogether? What was this like?
It was really interesting because we could appreciate how different people can think in different manners according to the experience of each country and of each continent.
Perfect.
So really interesting, and thank you for that.
Perfect. Thank you, Federico. That was wonderful.
See you. Bye.
Bye. So, young lady, please introduce yourself.
My name is Rima Safar. I'm the Acting Senior Director Air Navigation Aerodromes at the UAE General Civil Aviation Authority.
Great. And so tell me about the workshop that you went through. How was it?
The workshop was amazing. It was an opportunity to put what we've learned so far in theory in practice. And I actually used a lot of what I learned back home in Dubai into this
there you go.
This workshop. And basically it was very interesting to try to implement the concept and the plan that we had in Dubai here in Rome, from a point A to point B perspective, the target market, different locations within the city, whether we look at hospitals or hotels or universities or malls, all of that, airspace corridors, and many other aspects. It was very interesting to hear the different perspectives as well from from all the backgrounds.
Thank you. I was going to ask you, how is it to work with people from different continents, different industry sectors too, by the way, right?
Yeah,
how was that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's always interesting to see the different challenges.
Yes.
The different countries and sectors are going through. Some of the challenges I can relate to, and some of the challenges I'm very lucky that we don't face within our own countries, whether it's challenges with funding or bureaucratic processes, and all of that. And I think this is one of the things that is helping the acceleration of implementing AAM within the UAE.
Perfect.
So it's always interesting to listen to the different perspectives, and I feel blessed, to be honest, to be here, and also blessed to see the progress that we have made, within the UAE, and to see the UAE being used as an example a lot in this, in this workshop or in this forum.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for being with us, and I look forward to seeing you to the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so tell us a little bit about the workshop that you were doing and what was it like?
Okay, it was a short workshop about vertiports on the land side, earth side, generally here in the Fiumicino, and arrange the way to the city center of the Roma, and decide what will be the way of the fly and where will be the verti stops in the center. It was quite fun.
Yeah.
To discuss it in the team, and at the end, Marco come and show his idea and the reality.
Nice.
So it was quite good results because we saw the way how we think was quite similar, but of course we don't have a detail as he. So
of course
we must change our mind of the project. But it was fine.
How was the experience? How did you guys like the experience of working together like this?
Well, it's interesting that everyone has a different opinion. So
Yeah.
so that's I was the biggest task to just have one result. What could be the best option where to put the vertiport in the middle of Rome, because we don't know the Rome. And then on the end was the best option to ask the guy that bought, because they did a lot of research. So
Right.
then it was much more easier to discuss with him our opinions and how it works here in Rome. And
Perfect. The last question is very simple. Introduce yourself, please.
yeah, I'm David. I'm from Prague Airport, and I'm doing operational stuff at the airport. So I'm Prague Airport engineer. So we are doing mainly operational stuff like closures, runways, maintenance schedules, and so on. And we are also designing new taxiways, runways, let's say, and maybe sometimes vertiports in the future. We will see.
Yes. Awesome. What about you, young man?
And I'm Olda Stumbover, also from Prague Airport. I'm a safety inspector, engineer, and also I'm a member of the project with universities and research
Wow.
projects. So
Wow.
one of these projects is, for example, AAM and vertiports and business cases about that. So that's why I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Hi, Michael Hengstrom, CETA.
Your experience like?
It was excellent. I mean, we had a very diverse team, a very realistic planning task. I think it was very interesting to see the dynamics of the group, the different aspects, how they came together. It showed the complexity of putting vertiports in a certain environment, and so I liked it. And I think it was a good learning for everybody. The result was very positive, and you also, get to appreciate, obviously, the aspects that the other parties come in, and we all get to know each other, which is important.